Hello, and welcome to the Halfie Project podcast, where we go boldly where no man has ever gone before. My name is Captain Becky White, and sitting across from me is First Lieutenant Cedric Stout.
AKA Sky City. That was really weird hearing my full name.
Oh, it was kind of weird
Captain.
to even say it. Yes, Lieutenant. We are happy to have you aboard. Well, if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, welcome to the Enterprise. This is where we traverse the universe, discussing mixed race experience and what that looks like on our planet and all planets beyond in the solar system. And today, we have a very specific topic, in case you can't tell.
We're talking about Star Trek.
We're not talking about Star Trek specifically. Oh, wait, yes, we are. You're right.
Kind of.
You're right, sir. Forgive me for my lapse of judgment.
Aye, aye, Captain.
We are talking about a very specific moment that happened on the Enterprise in Star Trek Season 3. But I guess before we talk about actually Season 3, I kind of touched the microphone with my mouth. I hope it sounds okay.
I'll spray it down.
Yeah.
It's okay.
My bad. But today we are going to talk about a very specific moment that happened on Star Trek. Do you know what Star Trek is? Did you ever watch Star Trek growing up?
I definitely know what it is,
Yeah.
but I'm ashamed to say that I don't really know the full premise of it.
Yeah.
But I grew up not watching it, but it would like be on TV and stuff.
Sure.
And I'm sure I saw like scenes and things like that. And I just remember them in like the little cockpit, and there's like, a handful of them there. And that's about it. And cheesy
Beat me up,
graphics.
Scotty. And like little
Yeah.
moments like that.
Yeah. But I remember it was like a big thing even when I was growing up. I think it was just all reruns. But yeah.
I
it
guess,
was-
probably about by that time it would just be reruns.
Mhm.
But Star Trek, and now I'm no expert by any means at all. Forgive me, Father. My dad is a huge Star Trekkie fan. And so I should know more than I actually do. But yeah, Star Trek, of course, was a huge cultural phenomenon. But at the time, when the moment happened that we were discussing, it actually was on the verge of cancellation. Did you know that?
I think I was reading about that. Yeah.
Yeah, around season 3, it was on the verge of cancellation.
Why was that? Was it just...
I'm not entirely sure why. They were at an hour, like 10 p.m. at night, where younger viewers weren't, watching it as much. And I guess it just wasn't as popular. I'm not entirely sure the reasons, but there was a wave of fan mail that came in that actually saved them after season 3. So they were able to renew, or maybe it was right before season 3. Regardless, it was at a point where they were going to cancel. And then all the fan mail came pouring in. And so they were able to revive for another season. And then, fast forward a couple of years, even to today, you can see Star Trek has a huge impact. I would mostly say on American cultural psyche, but it has, of course, traversed beyond the bounds of the United States. And we're going to talk about a moment that happened on this very significant television show in American cultural history, and something that, how would you describe this moment? It kind of cracked the social norms of the times.
Yeah, it was very, very hot and steamy.
Oh,
you don't see these things on TV at the time.
No.
But no, not that. I mean, it might have been that
It
for
was.
some people. Yeah. But it was definitely something that was very novel, maybe, to anybody, like TV networks, viewers, and really just to society, because even this action was not really common in the society.
Yeah.
So it was just new.
Oh, stop teasing people. What was happening?
So it was the first interracial kiss on American television.
Yes, the first interracial kiss on American television. This was so interesting to research. One, because it forced me to actually watch an episode of Star Trek, which we did together. And that was very funny. I mean, like, the graphics were very revolutionary.
At the time, yeah.
At the time. Yeah, it was really cute. And I felt like it was very drawn on long, like the conversations and the battle and whatever. But we're talking about a particular episode that was aired on November 22nd, 1968, wasn't it? Wasn't it 1968?
Yeah, 68.
Yeah, November 22nd, 1968. There was an episode that was aired from Star Trek on American TV called Plato's Stepchildren, and which is a very odd name, but I mean the episode was very odd. honestly. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, watching it was so strange.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, me and you were watching it, but yeah, I'm glad that we've come a long way in TV and movie.
Oh, that was like a low key burn.
No, it was good. It was very revolutionary at the time.
At the time. So to give a little background on this episode so people can kind of understand what happened. All right. So like we said, it was the first interracial kiss. So there was, of course, Captain Kirk, played by the dashing William Shatner.
Bill Shatner.
Yes, he was so handsome.
He was aight.
Okay, so there was Captain Kirk. And of course, there was Lieutenant Nyota Uhura, who was played by Nichelle Nichols.
Yes.
And she was quoted as the first African-American woman to co-star in a long-running television series. And so this was in the mid to late 60s. And so she played a very significant role as a lieutenant on this ship, on the Enterprise. And she wasn't just, like, I guess a stereotypical role for a Black woman in television. She played like a very important authoritative figure on this long-running television show. And so what happened was Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock and the Doctor, I guess, crash landed on a planet. I kind of skipped the intro. I didn't know how they got on the planet. But they got on this planet where there are these very human-looking aliens. In fact, they look just like humans who are all dressed up like ancient Greeks, and they're wearing like togas and having like olive branches around their heads. And the Doctor helps heal like the king, I guess he was, or like the monarch on there.
Right. And
he like convinces them all to stay or come on his planet. And all of these aliens, they worship Plato, like the philosopher. So they're very like philosophical and using their quote unquote moral reasonings for why they do the things that they do.
Oh, that makes sense. Hence how they were dressed and how they looked.
Yeah, of course.
I just got it.
Yeah, Plato's Stepchildren. Good job. Well done. And so they have telekinetic powers. This is like the interesting point. So they have like these psychic powers, so they can force the crew to do anything that these aliens want. And so they have like a theater, the show, it kind of culminates and they have this show and all the aliens are like watching, wearing their togas and stuff, and they're like ha, pointing and laughing at the crew as they use their psychic powers, like the monarch and his wife, to use their psychic powers to force the crew to like sing and dance and do all kinds of silly antics as the aliens are watching them and like laughing at them. Ha 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 ha, look at you. So they're forcing the crew to do all of this. It's like a mock theater, and the crew is like, you can see like they're acting, they're being forced like telekinetically, like, whoa, being forced around and stuff. And the aliens are watching them as they're behaving crazy under these psychic forces. And then there's the scene. There's the moment where Captain Kirk and Lieutenant Uhura are then forced to kiss because the aliens are making them do that.
Right.
And it's kind of, like, it builds a tension. It really does. Like,
yeah, because what was the other guy's name?
Mr. Spock.
Yeah, Mr. Spock.
Mr. Spock,
and
a very famous Halfie on television.
Exactly. Yeah, so him and
I don't even know who that was.
Yeah, I guess she's a character.
She must be on the crew, I suppose.
Yeah, so they kiss first.
Right. They kiss first, but that's okay because it's not interracial. I mean, I guess in the TV it is because he's part Vulcan. Right, but that's
They're
not important.
Like white.
Right, played by white actors. But in this case, Nichelle Nichols is a Black woman and William Shatner is a white man. And so the captain and Lieutenant Uhura, they're like forced to embrace each other. And they're like trying to not do what the aliens are telling them to do as the aliens are watching and using their psychic powers. And like, I don't know what's going on in their heads, but the aliens are watching and they're like, oh, Captain, I'm frightened. I'm so very frightened. Like, oh, you must not be scared. And they're like forced to, like, they're trying to resist. And then they kiss on television.
Yeah, like William Shatner, he like grabs her and then like turns her over and then lays a big one on her. I mean, I guess, to us when we look at it these days, because I guess kissing scenes back in the day weren't very like what we know today is like make-out sessions.
Right.
I'm sure that wasn't even allowed.
It was
even
so
with, like,
60s. Like their cheeks first touch and they're like, oh, and still talking and all of that stuff.
And even a lot of shows, even throughout the decades, they faked kiss scenes where they would like do the camera angle thing and like their lips wouldn't touch. But yeah, this is 1968 and they locked lips.
That's right, they did. And it was very significant for a handful of reasons. So one, like we mentioned, the character itself, Nyota Uhura, was quite significant. You know, for Nichelle Nichols to play this character that had such an impact on television was quite, one, significant in itself. And we'll talk a little bit about how that came to be, I think. We should mention that. And then the second thing was an interracial kiss that happened on television on a major TV show, right? And the third thing is that actually this happened just a few months after the anti-miscegenation laws were struck down in the United States.
Yeah.
So in 1967, I believe it was Loving versus Virginia. And this is when the U.S. Supreme Court made the ruling saying the ban on interracial marriages was not constitutional, and they struck it down statewide. And so nationwide. And so at the time, you know, there's that famous court case where it was Loving and, oh gosh, I forgot the guy's name. Anyway, the couple, they were an interracial couple. And at the time in Virginia, they were not allowed to be married because there was a ban on interracial marriages. And so they went to Washington, got married in Washington, D.C. And then when they came back to Virginia, they were arrested. And so then they went to Supreme Court and they fought that case. 1967, Supreme Court said, you're right, interracial marriage bans are non-constitutional. And so then that was a huge shift. That was really, really a momentous moment. Even today, 50 years later, you can see people are celebrating. Like it wasn't too long ago where the anniversary came around and so many people on Instagram were posting like, wow, if it wasn't for, you know, Loving versus Virginia, I wouldn't be able to be married today.
Yeah, and this is the first year that I remember seeing that being viral on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's been celebrated. As a matter of fact, a couple years ago, they came out with a movie, sort of a biopic of Loving.
Yeah.
And I think it was called Loving, or maybe even just like Loving or something like that. Yeah, don't quote me on that, but they came out with a movie. Yeah. And so, so it's been out there. People have been aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing to note is I know that after they won their case, so it not only applied to Virginia, but many of the other case or states that actually had the same sort of marriage ban or interracial marriage ban started to follow suit. Yes. And they all, you know, deemed the ban unconstitutional. Right. So yeah, if it you know, it's hard to say. I'm sure America, well, I would like to think that America would have eventually gotten to that point at some point, but we don't know when. So that was pretty cool that they were the catalyst.
That was really cool. Yes. So that court ruling happened. And then just a couple months later on Star Trek, this interracial kiss was aired, which is quite a daring move if you think about it. They did a Gallup poll around the time when the Loving versus Virginia ruling came out, and less than 20% of U.S. Americans were approving of interracial marriages. It was a very low percentage of people who approved of interracial marriages or said it was okay. So can you imagine when this kiss was going to be aired on TV? Some people were quite nervous about it. Right. And that would be specifically the executives of NBC. This is where they were airing Star Trek.
Right. I mean, because a lot of places where NBC aired their shows would be in the South.
In the South.
And of course, the South, even to this day, the South is still like, you know, a little questionable when it comes to race. But yeah, just imagine 50 some odd years ago. 50? Oh, wow.
I think it was in 2018 when it was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, so you can imagine this is a show that's on the brink of being canceled. And, during a time where interracial marriages were not common or really accepted.
And it was right after that controversial ruling. Yeah. Well, controversial to some people.
Right. This is such a huge risk on the network. But I'm wondering, like, who actually wrote that into the script?
I'm wondering, too, because I didn't see that.
Right. I mean, it would make sense from the storytelling aspect for that to be written in. But, like, surely they would have thought about, oh, Uhura is a black woman, you know, or a black character. Yeah. But it's cool that they wrote it in. Yeah. But I wonder what the thought process was. Like, you know, let's try to see if we could push the envelope a little bit. Or...
Well, Star Trek apparently was always doing that because so the premise of the show is it's like 300 years in the future, and so in a way they were able to add commentary on the social issues that were happening in the 60s in the US without actually being too obvious and direct. Because some other shows would be happening like real time. You know, other TV shows would be happening real time where it's a family in the 60s and then they want to bring up like social issues and have commentary. That's a lot more difficult to do than say if you're quote unquote 300 years in the future and you're all alien races and you live on different planets. In a way, it was kind of like saying, hey, we're beyond this. In the future, this isn't even an issue. And it was making a statement in some way. And actually, after that episode aired, it was a few episodes later, they had another episode where it was called like The Last Battle or something like that, where they went to a planet where there was a sort of civil war happening on the planet between the alien race there. And the aliens, half of the alien races, they had like, they were literally, their body was split in half and like the left side would be black and the right side would be white. That was one race. And then the other race was the right side was black and the left side was white. So they looked pretty much identical and they were having like a civil war amongst each other. And the crew was like, okay, why are you guys being so stupid about this? So in a way, they were making a social commentary saying, why are we still having these race wars in the US?
Right.
And so it was a way of Star Trek to have social commentary on what was happening in the US at the time. So I thought that was pretty cool. And so this interracial kiss, in some way, it's like, wow, that was really daring and shocking. But on the other hand, who's surprised, right? With Star Trek and their history and the things that they had been doing. And also William Shatner, he really pushed for it, right? We watched an interview with Nichelle Nichols and she was explaining how that scene happened and how it went down. And it was really, really cute.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because apparently when they were shooting the scene, you know, Bill Shatner, he already knew that the scene was coming up. And from my understanding from listening to Ms. Nichols speak, I think after they actually performed the scene and they, like, Bill went in for the kiss for the first time, the first take, the director was like, cut, you know, what's going on? Why did you do that? And so
because weren't the executives there watching?
I think they were either there or they were called in right after that. So it became this big thing where after, you know, William Shatner actually kissed her, you know, the director was going back and forth and like, you know, Will, you actually, you know, you actually kissed her, right? She's, you know, she's a black girl. Yeah. And so she was like, okay, y'all figure it out. I'm going to go to the dressing room and just let me know. Yeah. And so I think the executives got involved because, again, they were concerned about NBC kind of getting under fire, you know, especially with the southern states.
With the viewership in the southern states.
Exactly. So, so they basically said, NBC said, look, just do 2 different takes, right? Do the kissing scene and then do one where you're not actually kissing.
Like you angle her head so that you can't see.
Yeah, exactly. And so director's like, okay, cool. And, you know, of course the director's probably feeling all this pressure. Sure. And then my boy Bill, you know, he's like, okay, cool. So, so Captain Kirk and Nuhala, and they... Nuhala?
You mean Uhura?
Uhura.
Nuhala.
Uhura, yeah. So they decided, I think they talked amongst themselves and convinced the director, let's do the kissing scenes first. Yeah. And so they did like several different takes of the kissing scenes. And then, you know, they had very little time left in the studio.
Like 6 minutes only left.
Yes. The assistant director was like, look, we got 6 minutes. We got to get this done.
You got to do the other shot, the one where you're not actually kissing.
Right. And so what ended up happening was, I think they only did 1 take. Yeah. And so
because they had no time.
Yeah. So William Shatner grabbed her and then I guess pulled her over and then, you know, faked kissed her, but then looked at the camera and made a little cross-eye.
And crossed his eyes.
Like in a way that he knew that they wouldn't be able to use the footage because it looked so silly. And, you know, the director did not catch it because the only person that would be able to see it was the cameraman and maybe whoever else is monitoring it. Yeah. So I think the director was just maybe in another position. Sure. And so the next day, they were all gathered together reviewing the footage and the executives were there. They're in a big room. I think all the cast and the crew, and they were looking through all of the footage. They're expecting to see all the kissing scenes and they're expecting to see the one where they're not kissing. And at that point they see the one where they get through all the kissing scenes. Okay, cool, whatever. And then the last scene where William Shatner crosses his eyes and then everyone in there, they're like trying not to laugh.
But it's also very serious.
Right. The executives are there and the director's probably thinking, oh my gosh.
There goes my career.
Right. Yeah. And so everyone's just kind of quiet. And then basically the executives stand up and they're like, okay, just use the kissing scenes.
Yeah.
So I think they just made
I think it was kind of like, this is unbelievable. I can't believe this happened. Because I can't imagine them being happy with that, right?
Right. So they had no choice but to use it.
There's no choice.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think they had an option to cut the scene out. So they ended up using it. And
that's so
after
funny.
the executive said that, they all in the room just bursted out with laughter because everyone thought that was hilarious what William Shatner did. So, yeah, and that's the story of how it actually made the cut, because there probably would have been a good chance that the executives would have said, look, just use the other scene just to be safe.
I love that. Like, William Shatner used his own influence and his creativity to make this happen. Because I'm sure he also recognized how, oh, wow, this is actually a big deal.
Right.
And I'm not going to just let this moment slide. I think that's so funny. And I love that. What a great story.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is really cool. So that's considered the first, well, it is considered the first interracial kiss on American television. But actually, prior to that, there were a couple of kisses, that happened on American television, where like Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, from I Love Lucy. So that was in the 50s, and they were the first interracial couple.
But they didn't kiss or anything.
So they actually did, I think, from my research.
Because I remember they slept in different. I actually watched I Love Lucy.
Oh, you did?
Yep.
Oh,
I used to watch it. And so I remember they had separate beds because they couldn't shoot scenes where they were in the same bed. And I think that was just any couple.
That was any couple. I think it wasn't the Brady Bunch, where it was the first time they ever showed a married couple in the same bed on TV. Yeah, I think that was the Brady Bunch. Could be wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong, guys. But yeah, so we had already Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, who were a real life couple as well. And so they were the first like interracial couple showing on television. There was that. And then there was actually a moment where Sammy Davis Jr. Kissed some girl on the cheek. I think it was Nancy Sinatra. She kissed Nancy Sinatra. He kissed Nancy Sinatra on the cheek on TV. That did happen once. But see, again, it's different. It's a different thing.
Right. And they weren't like a couple, obviously.
No. Yeah. Oh, Sammy Davis Jr. It was just a flirt. See, that was my Sammy impression.
Just a flirt. See.
Just a flirt. See. And that wasn't bad, right? So this was quite a significant moment. What happened with this kiss on television. Yeah. And it's funny because the tension on the scene, it's like building and building and building.
That's
building,
true. I was waiting for it. We were like, when is it going to happen?
Yeah. So Star Trek really knows how to, build the tension up like that. So that was pretty interesting. And so, of course, they were expecting negative commentary back on this. Oh, man, what are people going to say? What's the backlash going to be? And I imagine that they were quite anxious, especially as the show was, there were rumors of cancellation happening. Turns out that single episode was the most fan mail they ever received.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Paramount was the one, I think, who was heading this up on NBC. This was the most fan mail they had ever received. And most of it, overwhelmingly, was very positive, which I think probably was a relief for a lot of people.
Of course, yeah, job security.
Job security.
Yeah.
There was one I saw that came in. This one is so funny. So I found some of the fan mail. Apparently there was only one that was pretty much kind of negative. You gotta listen to this. Somebody wrote in after that episode and said, okay, maybe I should do my 60s male voice. Here we go. I am totally opposed to the mixing of the races. However, any time a red-blooded American boy like Captain Kirk gets a beautiful dame in his arms that looks like Uhura, he ain't gonna fight it.
Dang.
That was their semi-negative fan mail that they got. I love that.
That's very so good great. Impression, by the way.
Thank you. You can just imagine me with my smoking jacket and my cigar.
Yeah, little suit,
my cigar, see?
Balding head.
Yeah, a little bald, yeah.
Man in mid-40s.
That's right. Yeah, see? Yeah, so that was, I love that. I love that they got very positive fan mail from that. And so I'm sure this helped to kind of ride the wave that led Star Trek to get renewed for another season, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that's awesome.
As we know.
That is awesome, because I just, I want to say this. When I was a kid, and I think I might have mentioned this before, I used to always love to see maybe a mixed race couple or a mixed kid or just someone mixed on TV, on mainstream TV or TV shows, which I barely ever saw because it just wasn't really a thing. And I remember seeing just an ad, maybe in a magazine or something, of a mixed race family growing up. And I think I was maybe middle school, high school. And so it got me excited because I got to see that, hey, I can relate to that in some way.
Yeah.
And so I think this moment was important because it did the same thing for, I wouldn't say many people at that point, but it, for it kind of gave the green light for, I guess, people to be able to pursue this or to feel okay with pursuing it. Yeah, it's sort of an affirmation of like, okay, it's cool.
Yes. At that time, there was only, I think, about 3% of interracial marriages in the United States, like a very, very tiny number. Or let's say relationships, because, the marriage law hadn't passed. Or I guess in other states, they could have gotten married. But yeah, so only a very, very small number of mixed marriages were happening in the United States. And so, of course, television has a really, as much as I'd like to deny it, as much as I'd like to say what you see on TV shouldn't affect you, it's not that important. The truth is, especially at that time, it was a unifying factor. Every household in America had a television since the 50s.
And they had their 2 or 3 channels.
Right. So everybody was watching it always at the same time. Yeah. So it was really significant. So you can imagine the impact of every single household in the United States watching this moment on TV. It's like, what? And then the families or the couples that were already in these mixed relationships, I'm sure this was quite a significant moment. Like, wow, they actually show this on TV.
Yes. And I'm thinking about my aunt, my mom's oldest sister, who's 10 years older than my mom, who actually married an African American man in the I think it was the early to mid 70s.
Yeah.
And so I can only imagine that, because she was part of the first generation of, well, she was Korean who migrated, but my uncle, the man that she married, they were part of that first generation of interracial couples. And I wonder, would that had been the case if, say, a show like this or a moment like this happened? You know what I mean? So it's really cool to think about and just the doors that it's opened. It
is really cool. And this goes, I wouldn't say hand in hand, but it did have an influence from Martin Luther King Jr. in the civil rights movement.
Oh, okay.
So, of course, we know this is 60s. The show was happening in the 1960s, 66, 67, 68. So what happened was actually Nichelle Nichols, who played Uhura, she wasn't going to sign on again to continue the show. This was before the Interracial Kiss happened, so it almost never happened. She wasn't going to sign on to continue the show. And she was at an NAACP meeting in LA. And fate would have it that she ran into Martin Luther King Jr. And he saw her. Of course, she was playing a very significant role on television as an African-American woman at the time. And he saw her, and this is what he said. He said, okay, I'm not going to do my impression. I feel like I have a really great one.
If it was Obama, you could do it.
If it was Obama, I got a great Obama impression. But he said, you mustn't leave. You've changed the face of television forever. For the first time, the world sees us as we should be seen, as equals, as intelligent. And so that moment, she said, meeting Martin Luther King Jr. was so impactful on her that she decided to stay on for the show, which then, after that, the Interracial Kiss happened, and in the future, and then this just, history was made.
Yeah.
Isn't that so cool?
That's really cool.
Yeah. Man. What providential moments. So I feel like it was a very important moment. And it's definitely a very interesting episode. If you've never watched Star Trek, oh, what the heck? Just start there. Just watch that episode. Plato's Stepchildren.
Yeah, it's a long episode, though.
Yeah.
It's like an hour.
It's really long.
So we kind of
I don't know if I could watch any more else of Star Trek. But it was definitely interesting. And if there's any Trekkies out there, we'd love to hear from you and see what you guys thought about our summary of this significant episode.
Yeah, let us know if you already knew this fact or if you remember seeing the episode. Yeah, that'd be really cool to know. Because I didn't know. Cool. I wouldn't have known what to say about the first interracial kiss on TV. I wouldn't have known.
Oh, no, I don't even know either. Because for us, it's pretty normal, we see it happening on TV and in dramas and stuff. Even though it's still significant.
Yeah, it's still not common.
Right.
It's not common.
And people still like to write blogs about it, oh my gosh, this mixed couple on TV. Because I found so many blog posts saying my favorite mixed couples on TV shows. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that was like a big thing. So that was really cool to see. So yeah, if you are part of the generation who watched this episode on TV, I wonder what was your feeling.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, so any Trekkies out there, please write in. We'd love to know. So we're going to wrap it up here. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Anything else you wanted to say?
No. I think I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't have any fan mail for today. We'll read some more for next week as well as for George's Corner. But make sure you guys follow us on Instagram at the Halfie Project. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, also the Halfie Project, and always feel free to get in touch. You can leave us comments below this video. Ooh, Trekkies who are watching the YouTube video that comes out on the channel, leave a comment below. Let us know what you guys think of the episode. And you can always get in touch at thehalfieproject@gmail.com. Live long and prosper. We are the Halfie Project.